Hey everyone! This video is an addendum to the video I did last week. This is in regards to the part I was talking about regarding criticism and going out to other mediums and criticizing them, and even criticizing your own medium and your own work and all that stuff. And it was so big, it sort of deserved its own video, so I went ahead and just am making a new video now. In regards to criticizing, it's very important to remember that your criticism is rarely the last say on anything. That's just how life goes. Even if you're the photographer, if you're working for clients, usually their say is the last say on anything. And even if you're making your own work, the minute you put it out into the world, you pretty much leave the say up to anyone who's viewing it. So your say may be the last say in regards to releasing the work, but your say is not the last say in regards to what's being said about the work. And there's nothing you can do about that. Don't waste your time trying to do that. But in regards to criticizing other mediums like movies or music or books or paintings or anything, your criticism is not the last say, and it's not the only say either. It's very important to understand that, because when you're breaking these things down, and that's the whole point of going out and criticizing them, as I pointed out in that video, as you're going out and breaking these down, I would recommend you see what other people have to say and see their perspectives and see what they're saying about art that is out there. Don't get hung up on whether or not they feel like theirs is the most important say or anything like that. That doesn't matter. Just see what they have to say. Because you might get a different perspective on that. It doesn't hurt to see what other critics have to say, and pretty much anyone's a critic these days, right? The internet invites it. So read what they're saying, and maybe a lot of them you won't get a lot from, but you might get something from that one person. It might change how you see everything, right? I am not a fan. I remember the movie Starship Troopers. I went to see it. I didn't like it. I thought it was a dumb movie. I was bored with it. And then I read a criticism about it of like 10 years later, and the person made a point. This movie's not so much a satire. If you look at it as a propaganda film for a war that's never existed with an alien species that we're not aware of, it suddenly all makes a little more sense. It's a whole different way to look at it. And suddenly when I go and see Starship Troopers, I like it a little more. I like it a bit more. I don't like it as a plain movie, but when you look at it as a propaganda piece, it kind of looks pretty cool to me, at least to me. And that's my point. It's like you never know what other people's perspectives get. And suddenly I'm seeing that movie in a different light. I'm not looking at it as just a regular movie. I'm looking at it as a movie that's a propaganda piece. And that changed my perspective completely. And that same goes with other critics out there. If you are limiting yourself to only your criticism, and don't get me wrong, your criticism is important because that's what ultimately is going to influence the work that you put out and the direction you take with the work you create. But if you take in the criticisms of others regarding the works of others, two things are going to happen immediately. One, you're going to start to learn how to look at these other works of arts in different ways. Now, the best part about that is you can pick and choose which takes you want to take, no matter how much how much people think of their criticisms or how little people think of their own criticisms. You can pick and choose which of those criticisms you want to take with you and how you want to take that direction as how it will influence your creations and your art. But you don't get any of that if you block that all off. If you say, well, my criticism is the only thing that matters ever, and I'm not going to listen to what anyone else has to say. Now, the other thing that happens when you start to look at other people's criticisms, particularly in other mediums, you start to learn how to take what you can from the criticisms as they are presented. Like if somebody is presenting their criticism as the end-all be-all, and you notice they're just arguing with people on the internet who disagree with every little detail or any little detail, I should say, of their criticism, and if they're arguing every little thing, you learn how to maneuver things like that and sort of pull out the criticism parts that you want. And as you get better at doing that, it carries over to your own work, because you're going to get criticism of your own work, whether you want it or not. You're going to bump into it. And I know people say, ignore the critics or avoid the critics or avoid any of that stuff. You're going to bump into somebody who says, well, I think this about your work, or I don't think that about your work, or I think you should have done this, or I think you should have done that. If you've already been practicing with other mediums, when it happens to you, you'll know how to maneuver that a little bit better. And you probably won't take it as personally, or you'll know how to take it on the chin, just so it won't get under your skin as much. Because as much as people say, oh, I don't care, we all care. When we're creating something and we're putting it out in the world, we care what the world thinks. It's just how it goes, right? You don't just leave it out there and abandon it. But not everyone's going to like everything you make. And some people are going to put it in ways that are going to feel like an attack on you personally. And the trick is to pull what you can out of those criticisms and figure out if there's anything useful for you to pull out of them, I should say, and to implement into your work, versus either taking it personally or just trying to change everything to meet every whim of every criticism that's out there. If you can sort of pick apart other people's criticisms, it's like picking apart other people's artwork, you can start to pull what you need out of it. It ends up being a resource that you can pull from when you need to pull from it. Now, I don't suggest you go out and look for critics of your work. I do suggest that when you bump into them, you have the ability to not take it personally and get all angry or anything like that. And it's hard. It's hard. I know. But yeah. So the two main things here is your criticism is not the end all be all, because you don't want to get stuck going down that road where you are in a tunnel vision, no other influences are coming in, and you just think everything you do is perfect, because you're not perfect. There's always ways to improve. And the other thing is you want to learn to be able to take criticism and get what you can out of that criticism. Okay? Anyways, thank you for watching, and see you again.